Welcome to the Girl Dad Show.
Welcome to the Girl Dad Show, a professional parenting podcast. Each month, I interview entrepreneurs, leaders, and professionals who are balancing parenthood, life, and profession in the hopes to learn what it takes to be an amazing professional parent. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Girl Dad Show. Today I had Michael Brito on, and it was an amazing episode of coming full circle and really understanding how life can lead you all sorts of trials and tribulations and how that impacts your parenting, your career trajectory and journey, and ultimately how to give back to the community that has given you so much. It is an amazing episode, and I can't wait for you to check it out, as I've been following Michael's career over the last 10 years on LinkedIn, as he has been such a prolific marketer and executive. And he has just a wonderful, wonderful story that is one of, overcoming challenges and just a fascinating perspective on life. And I can't wait for you to learn from him. I had such a wonderful time interviewing him, and it's a really, really great episode. Michael, thank you so much for joining me on the Girl Dad Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It has been way too long since we've caught up, so I'm actually catching up with the listeners as well here. But do you mind sharing a little bit about what you do for a living?
Yeah, I think it's been 10 years. Last time we talked.
Has it really?
Santana Row, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I work at Zeno Group. We are an integrated communications agency. I lead analytics, which is interesting because I failed math in high school. But it's been a journey. I'm having a blast. I love working with clients. I have an amazing team, 40 plus analytics team globally. And, I'm still learning every day. Amazing culture, amazing company, amazing leadership.
Wow. Wait, 40 people doing analytics?
Yeah.
So this is a massive agency. This isn't an agency. This is like a firm.
It is a firm.
Yeah, if you have 40 analytics people, that means that you guys are processing a lot of data for a lot of people, because one person could do a lot of analytics for multiple. Oh my gosh. The
big.
Scale and scope is really big.
It's very big, yeah. And I have to hire people smarter than me. Like, that's the number one rule, because you don't want me like crunching numbers and doing predictive analytics.
How did you get from analytics? Because I thought you were more on the strategy, marketing. You're like the branding, strategy, and marketing guy, right? Like,
I know. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I was always afraid of data. Even in college and going into the workforce, I was afraid of data, and I always was uncomfortable answering questions about why is this increase or why did this decrease. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago where I met a mentor who really taught me how to take big data and make it small and actionable. So we have tools, we have capabilities, we have obviously Excel and pivot tables, thank God. There was life before pivot tables and life after pivot tables. But and so I think I have I'm really good at looking at data and creating an insight or figuring out what the insight is and then communicating that to clients. And so I think that's why I've excelled where I am at.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And then what big projects are you working on right now?
Man, well, we do a lot. We do a lot of upfront research and analytics where we're looking at white space. We're doing audience mapping, audience personas. We use social and media data. So it's observed data. We're not doing surveys. We have another team that does survey and research, but we're taking observed behavior. We're finding white space for clients for campaign kickoffs and programs. And then we're also doing a lot of measurement. So looking at earned media measurement, paid media, integrated analytics, and helping clients understand the value of what we do for them, whether it's just PR, earned media, or if it's larger integrated campaigns. So there's a technical side to it, doing a lot of dashboard building in Tableau and predictive analytics. And so it's super fun and diverse, and working with B2B clients, consumer clients, and healthcare. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. Sounds like a really, really complex job, actually.
It's fun, man. It's a good gig.
Yeah, and then are you still an adjunct professor?
Yes.
Okay. What other projects do you have? Yeah, because I know you had something like that, and then I don't know what else you're doing. You're always doing something. I'm like, it's hard to keep up with you on LinkedIn because you always got your hand in something.
I know. Yes, I'm an adjunct professor at San Jose State, and I've been doing that for about 12 years. which has been great. It's my kind of gift to give back to young adults and students trying to find their way.
Nice.
I started doing it because when I worked at Edelman, I would get these resumes when we were going through massive growth, and a lot of the local universities, Stanford and Cal and Santa Clara University, I would receive these resumes, and it just didn't have the skills that we needed. And so I had figured out a way to start teaching at San Jose State, and been doing that for one semester every year. I'm sorry, 2 semesters a year, 1 semester per class, and it's been great. I have students who've gone on to work at Nike and work for the Jordan brand, to Twitter and Google and LinkedIn. It's phenomenal to see that.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I'm also, are you a Spartan, or did you just become a professor at?
No, I went to St. Mary's. So
St. Mary's. Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Kind of close to you, right? You're in Livermore or Pleasanton?
I was in Dublin, yeah.
Okay.
The very good memory. Yeah, I moved to the East Bay, and then 3 years ago, I actually moved to Austin. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I'm part of the Great California Migration.
They all hate you. They all hate you.
I know, exactly. They all hate me. And my Prius, no matter how fast I drive, I'm like, everyone's honking at me in their big trucks and flipping me off, and I'm like going 90 miles per hour. And I'm like, I can't go any faster, and I'm still going too slow, Yeah, so I did the migration over with all the other Californians 3 years ago, and so I've been in Austin since. But I do know where St. Mary's is. I think my sister went there, actually. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, she did, actually. Her and I worked together briefly at Yahoo many years ago. So.
Oh, it's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. You did that. So you went to St. Mary's, but you got a adjunct professor job at San Jose State. How did that happen? Because I've actually been really involved with San Jose State while I was there. I did a bunch of guest lecturing, and I did a lot of volunteer work. Helped with the business department with their business plan competitions, and I was doing a lot of that stuff. But what did that look like? And why would you do that? Because it seemed really like a lot of time for. I don't think they even. Do they pay? I don't think it even pays. Right?
Not a lot. I don't. I mean,
Okay.
it's spending. It's tuition money for my daughter at UC Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
I was in the right place at the right time. I was at this networking event somewhere in South Bay, and I was talking about how much I felt like I wasted my graduate degree because it was just I didn't learn anything, to be honest. And this guy comes up to me, and he's like, I hire guys like you. And Bob Rucker, he's a great guy. He used to be a CNN host years ago in Chicago, and reporter. And he's, a month later, I'm literally working and teaching classes. And it's the curriculum. It did take a lot of work initially. I'm teaching digital marketing, so I look at like storytelling, narrative development, and then I just introduced Peso as a model, paid, earned, shared, and owned, so that students can think about all the different roles and paths they can take as it relates to marketing. There's so many ways to go. And so my first semester, I literally tried to create a slide deck for every class. It took me hours. Then the next semester, I realized that a lot of it was like outdated, and I had to redo it. So for like a year and a half, I spent hours redoing curriculum. Then I got smart, and I moved to this model where it's just outline. So I'm going to talk about storytelling the first 2 weeks. And so I have an outline and direction that I want to take, but I don't do slides. It's all lecturing. It's all things that I'm learning with clients every single day. So it's real time. It's
dope.
great. It's amazing.
I wish I had you as my professor when I went there.
Oh man. I'm going to share this video with my students. Trust me.
Oh, cause it was so, I love San Jose State. I love my experience there, but it was so like non-relevant. I had started a business my junior year of college, and just like the pace at which the institution can move, it was just so like a year or two behind what was happening in the Silicon Valley digital arena. And it's just like it was like, it's not a bad thing, obviously. It's just the nature of the way that the school system works and all that stuff. But having a professor that's literally in the workspace, working in apparently a gigantic firm, you really get the actual cutting edge, content and knowledge, of what's happening in digital marketing. That's fantastic.
It's a good pool to hire too. I've hired students. I still have students right now that have been working with me and not directly for me, but in my team and on my teams for the last 5-6 years. So it's been great. Yeah, I have a blast. I have a love for San Jose State.
Oh, that's really great. And then how did you get into marketing to begin with? Take me all the way back. Like, what was your childhood like, and where'd you grow up, and what led you to this career, man?
Wow. Well, I grew up in East San Jose, single mom, lived in a tough neighborhood, and it wasn't easy. You know, I thought that Vienna sausage and mac and cheese was common. I thought every family had that for dinner.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got older and I realized that we struggled. I didn't know we were struggling. You know, I think that was, my mom did a really good job at shielding me from that through her emotions and love, right? As being a good mom and supportive. So I never felt poor, or I never felt like we struggled, although my mom was struggling. And, I made a lot of very bad choices. You know, I was a latchkey kid. My mom worked, evenings. So from 3 to 11 or so. So I'd get home from school and there'd be no one around. And, so friends would come over, I started drinking alcohol and doing other things. And so I was really going down the dark path from the time I was about 13 till 17. So about 4 years of just really making really stupid decisions and being lucky that I'm here and healthy and not, in jail. And when I tell people that I recently met the last maybe 10 years or so, a little bit of my story, they're like, oh my God, you? Yeah. And it's crazy to then also to look at the people that I know that I'm still connected to. They're like, oh my God, I'm so proud that, where you've come and where you're going. And so, when I was 17, I got in some trouble, and I spent about a year in a boys ranch. So I live in Morgan Hill. We moved here about 4 years ago. I love it. It's like, I live within walking distance to a winery. It's amazing. It's a small city.
Yeah. I love Morgan Hill. Yeah.
There's also a boys ranch here in Morgan Hill. And I stayed there as a 17-year-old.
Wow.
And
full circle.
Full circle. Crazy. Yeah. I know. And, when I was in there, I met this guy by the name of John Hall. He was a counselor there. He was was a youth counselor, and he was an Army vet. And he would just talk to me about the military and like what he did, and he kind of planted the seed that to think about something. I really had no goals. I didn't want to know what I want. Didn't really have an idea what I want to do for a living. So when I got out of the boys ranch, I was I had turned 18 actually while there, and so I couldn't go back to high school. I didn't graduate from high school, so I went to get my GED. Got my GED. Then I went. During that time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to join the military. So I went to the recruiting station on McKee and Jackson. It's not there. It's no longer there. And I walked in, and the first thing I asked was, do you accept a GED? I went to the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force and the Marines. And they all accepted a GED except the Marines. And when I when I was talking with Staff Sergeant Woodard, who was the Marine recruiter, I vibed with it. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the real deal. And plus, the uniforms are so much sharper and amazing. And I just sensed a difference in the vibe. So I had to go back to school essentially, and it was an adult education. It took me 6 months to get my degree. And that year, 1993, I went to December 6th, 1993. I went to Marine Corps boot camp.
Wow.
And crazy. And it was
crazy. You got purpose. So
well, what's interesting, I know. What's interesting, my mom brought this up. My mom's no longer with us. She died in 2017 of cancer. But, she would always talk about, in 1992, June or July, she had went to pick me up from the boys ranch. In December 1993, she dropped me off at the airport to go to Marine Corps boot camp. So it was just a kind of a frame of reference for her. Yeah. To show her how proud she was of me, and to let congratulate me in that accomplishment. So I went there and I spent years active duty, came back, and then I went to college from there.
Oh my gosh! So you went from the rough side of San Jose, because I lived in San Jose for like 12 years, and East Side is pretty dicey. It's pretty hard knock. You know what I mean? It's not the most savory place in the world, and you went from that kind of in and out of trouble, and then you got inspired by this kind of like catalysmic moment, it sounds like, at this boys ranch. Yeah. And it inspired you, gave you purpose, and it almost sounds like that's kind of like the turning point. It almost, like, lack of better words, maybe saved your life.
It sure did. Yeah, it sure did. I have family members who, are incarcerated and have been for many years. My little brother actually is. And I don't really talk about him much. We don't really have a relationship, but, so yeah, I mean, it's, I'm thankful, to where I'm at. And I think that, my mom and her empathy and her drive to produce a good life for me and my little sisters was, I think, what helped me become the best dad I could try to be, I think, and I'm not perfect, and I've made a lot of mistakes over the last 21 years because I have an 18 and 21-year-old daughter. But I feel like I don't have any regrets. I was overly, sometimes obsessively invested in their lives because I didn't have that as a dad, my dad. So that was always in the back of my head, right? Yeah. And then I went to college, and I want to be, believe it or not, a cop. Right. I want to be a police officer. You're going to laugh when I tell you this.
Yeah, I'm already laughing. Yeah, I can't believe you want to be a cop.
Well, I was going to Evergreen to get like certified, post-certified.
Yeah.
Worked at Eastridge Mall. I was an Eastridge security guard.
No way.
2.5 years.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I know. And it was cool because Eastridge, like, you were in the rough part of town, and the security there was like, I'm still friends with many of those guys, and many of them are police officers now. Yeah. And we built a really good brotherhood, but it was funny because when I was working there, I would then see guys from the neighborhood, from my neighborhood, come in, and there was always conflict because they'd be like, what are you doing here? What are you, a popo now? Or, and so I struggle with identity I felt almost like I betrayed the neighborhood I lived in and betrayed the people I grew up with because I wanted to live a better life. And that is still, to this day, there are instances where I get a feeling where, I'm in an environment where, there's, people that I know who really know me from my early years and where I am now. And I kind of I've had this identity crisis for a long time that I still struggle with today.
Yeah. I can't even imagine how hard that is to have that kind of polarity in lifestyle and then have to have that clash like all the time, especially if you move to Morgan Hill, because Morgan Hill is not that far from San Jose.
No, it's not.
It's like right
Santa Clara. I raised my girls in Santa Clara, right by Levi Stadium, right by Rivermark. Yeah. And so, I've the older I've gotten, I'm 49 and I've now it doesn't bother me as much now. But when the girls were little, I felt like I had to shield them from certain things. And, so it's happy to dive deeper into that as well, if you'd like. But yeah. And then I just kind of like was in college and I met my wife. She kind of turned my, she's like, you want to be a police officer? And she was worried, right? That's not a safe job, so.
It's not, yeah.
I was like, well, I kind of did. And then I just started exploring other options and changed my degree, transferred to St. Mary's and got my degree in business and kind of somehow got a job at Sony. I have no idea why they hired me. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like a marketing coordinator. And that's how it started. Before social media was a thing, I was like a marketing coordinator building these cool little, design we do these not webinars, but in-person training. I would build these like flyers and put them up all over campus. And it was pretty funny.
Wait. So are you saying that tongue in cheek, or do you really not know how you got that job?
I don't know I don't know why they hired me.
That's awesome. That's great. But you got in and you did it. You had the audacity. You got it and you got in.
Well, do you know Ray Hartgen? Do you remember Ray Hartgen?
Maybe rings a bell.
So Ray Hartgen he would be at the tweet ups we would go to, and he's a cancer survivor, but he was my boss there at Sony. He's been very, very pivotal in my career as well. Yeah. And we still laugh, and I haven't talked to him in a while, but we would laugh and, because my career trajectory just shifted like 180 degrees,
Drastically from that. Yeah. Cause you've done a lot of other stuff since then. Your marketing career has exploded. You've written books too, right?
I've written books. 3 books. Yeah.
3 books. Yeah. And they're all around marketing.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And you're like a speaker. You're an adjunct professor. I could list off more. I don't really. There's so many things that you're always doing something.
It's a result of ADHD. Yeah. Like I cannot just sometimes my team gets on me about working so much. Yeah. I can't just sit and my girls, like I'm less needed than I was 5, 10, 12 years ago. Right. I couldn't do my everything now. Yeah. If my girls were little, because I was heavily involved in, from the time dinner time to bath time to story time, that was dad time for, up until a point where, they then took their own baths but then after that it was like story time, sock fights. We did so much. And for years, that was always a priority. And now it's like, my girls, one's in college at UC Santa Barbara.
Crazy.
Crazy, I know.
Oh my gosh.
So
okay. Yeah.
It's now there are other challenges that I'm dealing with now, but happy to talk through that. But I'm pleased with where I've been as a parent, and seeing my girls grow up and blossom to who they are today and where they're going. My wife's been pivotal in supporting me in all my endeavors, but and my girls have too. So it's been a great experience.
I actually do want to dive into that. I want to know more about what you think of success as a parent. I mean, I have two young girls. I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old. And we're getting to the point where the 6-year-old is now like, she can brush her own teeth and start doing her stuff, start taking care of herself. The younger one's starting to get there too, but I still need to like double check to make sure she like, wiped her butt okay and stuff like that, like the older ones. Am I bringing you back a little?
Yes,
Am I bringing you back? Yeah. And so we're kind of at that age, but it's like, it like makes me like so like crazy sad to think about like all these parents that have kids your age that are like, they're kind of they're independent. They're kind of figuring themselves out, and you're more like you tell me how you feel about parenting them, but like you have to convert your parenting to like friendship.
Yeah.
And like,
that's what we're
and
going
mentorship.
Yeah.
Say it again.
That's kind of when they're 14, 15, 16, that's how it has to be. And when they're, certainly as an adult, my youngest one just turned 18. What's interesting is like, having two girls a year apart. My girls are 3.5 years apart. And we grew, for the most part, except for the last 3 years, we all lived in the same house in Santa Clara. And it's interesting to reflect back and when you're raising a family in the same exact household, same exact environment, same parents, yet they're completely different. It's just crazy how that happens. And they couldn't be more different, and they couldn't be, and I love them both, obviously equally. And, it's the challenges growing up with two girls, I like to say, I didn't have a lot of challenges with like things. As a young child, I used to break things. Like I would always break windows by accident, and this is how boys are. Boys are just rough.
Aggressive, yeah.
And aggressive. And my daughters were not like that, so I grew up with princesses and Dora and, Barney and things like that. And so there wasn't a lot. It was very affectionate. The relationship between my daughters and I growing up, and even still today, we say it, if they're home, there's not a day goes by that we don't say, I love you. And, now it's usually me saying it, but that's how it was with my mom and I. We would say 3 or 4 times randomly the other day, I love you. That's just how it was growing up. That's how I am with them. And so there was always we always had really strong affection growing up. And, certainly as it got older, there's kind of a breaking point where, okay, when do I stop kissing on the lips and the cheek? It just gets kind of like awkward. So, and I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is to that.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Or like, when do you stop supervising showers? Right?
Yeah,
4. I don't even remember when I stopped, but there was a point where I stopped, and so, they openly talk about, when they're on their cycle, like, I it's funny, like, I'd be interested in your point of view, maybe not yet, but like I get home and I know when we were all living together during the pandemic, I knew like their cycles lined up.
Yeah.
And it was like an emotional roller coaster. And I'd get home, I'd be like navigating, I'd go straight to the office and wouldn't even talk to anybody because I knew whatever I said, it was wrong and there'd be, issues.
Yeah. I can't wait for that to happen because even without them going through cycles, it's like wild to me just having, there's like, I live in a house full of girls, right? So even my dog is a girl. And it's like, it's so weird because like in one day, like I'll be the best thing since sliced bread. And then like, in an hour, I'm like the worst thing, like that, like then poop in the floor, And I'm like, what the hell just happened in that 4-hour sequence that this could be so drastic? And it's just like wildly erratic. Yeah.
That 4-hour sequence is going to be like 10 minutes as they
10
go.
minutes.
It's just insane, So in my class, I talk about storytelling, and there's this, we watch this one commercial. It's an HP commercial, and it's advertising this little pocket. It's like a pocket printer where you can take a picture on your iPhone and print like a wallet. Yeah. Yeah. And the commercial is about this dad who every year on her first day of school, there's no talking in it, but you can follow along. And every year he takes a picture of his daughter, and you can tell she's irritated. Like he walks in the bathroom and she looks up at him, rolls her eyes and walks out. She's just like, he takes a picture. And he's kind of bummed about it, but she just doesn't really talk to him. She ignores him. Yeah. And then at the end of the commercial, it's like a 3-minute commercial. It's won several awards. It's amazing. It makes me honestly choke up, because at the end he walks into her room and she's downstairs doing her homework with her mom, and he's kind of reflecting and he sits down on her bunk bed, and then he lays down, and then he looks up at the top of the bunk bed, and then he turns on the little lights, and then there's every picture that he's ever posted of him and his daughter. And I was just like, and talking about it affects me. It affects me. And to me, that is the relationship, right? For a long time, through those 13, 14, 15-year-olds, where dad is not cool. They don't want to have a conversation, and everything you say is not cool, and they roll their eyes, but they do love you, and that's a great reminder. That commercial is a great reminder of that.
Yeah. That's amazing. I got to find that commercial. Send it to me afterwards.
I will send it to you.
I definitely want to see it. Yeah. So have you ever asked your daughters like what they think you do for a living? Like, do you know what they like? Do they even know who you are? Like,
my older one does. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
My younger one asks me every 6 months, "What do you do, Dad?" And it's usually like within the context of somebody else asking.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's funny. My younger one reminds me of me, just her behavior. Yeah. Which, she leaves things open. Like she'll go open, the Cocoa Puffs, and she'll leave the bag open. I did the same thing. Yeah. So they do. Yeah. They brag. I mean, it's great to hear them when they brag. They do brag about some of my accomplishments. And my older one is actually graduating from UC Santa Barbara. She's getting a degree in communications. And so.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Kind of following in your footsteps.
I know, kind of. And she's super smart in math, much smarter than me. And but she's not sure where she wants to do and where she wants to go. So now it's at this point where I don't like, they're going to find their own purpose and journey, and I just support them as they need it.
Got it. And so has that success profile now changed for you? Like, what do you think of your parenting? What is like successful parenting now in this stage of your life?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I kind of go through these lulls, and my wife has to like remind me that they're still young adults, and now both of them are adults. But like, I'll get my feelings hurt, like when, if my daughter comes home from school and doesn't come home, like she doesn't come here. Or she does a day trip and she doesn't stop by. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like I get hurt.
That's awesome.
or she doesn't text me back right away,
Yeah. You can't stop from feeling it. You just can't stop.
Yeah, I can't. Like, if I could control my emotions, I would. Trust me, I would. I would. Yeah. But it's little things like that bother me. And I know they're minor. They're minor issues. I know they love me. I know that they know I love them more than anything. Yeah. But those little triggers that to me, they bother me, and sometimes they'll poke at me for a while. Yeah. And that's yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. But they're getting so busy. I mean, they're like, what are they, 18 and 21? And can you imagine? Remember when you were 18 and 21, you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on in life and what being an adult meant, and like trying to understand like all these different things. Like, I remember my mom being upset that I didn't call often. And I'm like, Mom, I'm trying to figure out who the heck I am. Like, I don't even know what the hell, like, I'm like responsible for stuff. I have to like make sure I'm eating. I have to make sure like, I'm like, so I don't know. Hopefully that gives you a little consolation and just reminder that, we were probably the same way.
I think we were. My youngest one just got a job.
Where's she going?
So she's a senior at a high school here in Morgan Hill, and she got a job at this small. It's a boutique clothing store, women's boutique clothing store.
Like a local one, yeah.
It's like a local one, yeah. And I was like, yeah. Well, the easy part for the most part is getting a job. The hard part is keeping it. Mm-hmm. And so I'll make little comments like that. And what's funny though is, she, at her high school, they had a day where they had to do like mock interviews. So she had to like dress up in nice business clothing. And like the night before, she's like, I don't think I need to go. I already have a job. And I was just like, so, my wife and I looked at each other. We're like, we just kind of laughed internally. And so, they're going to find their own path. As much as we want them to do it for them, they'll find their way. And they've built a strong foundation. We've built a strong foundation of having very open lines of communication at home. And I'm begging my daughter, my older one, when she graduates, like, come back and live at home. I want you to live here, save money, find a job, and you can live here as long as you need to. And don't feel like you need to be on your own right away. So, but she wants to be. She doesn't. The older Gen Z, or I guess she's Gen Z. They want that independence. They don't want to feel privileged in many cases. And my feedback on that is, I wasn't privileged, and I worked my tail off because I had a mom that worked her tail off so that we can do this.
That's right.
And
That's
so,
right.
so it's balancing that feeling of privilege versus, hey, I'm blessed to have a parents who will allow me, or we have a home, I have a place to live. So it's a balance, and it's an ongoing conversation too, as well.
It's amazing, man. Sounds like you're qualifying success really by letting go. So you're really,
it's hard to say that, man.
Yeah, but that's really what you're saying. You're like, hey, they know they can come to me, but I'm just like being a good parent right now is just letting them figure it out.
Being a friend and listening,
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Because I'm still here wiping my kids' butts. You know what I mean? I'm just listening to you going, what? You're going to let them out in the world on their own? You crazy. Yeah.
When you, when you were talking about success, and something I wish I would have taken to heart early on. Well, let me rewind a little bit and say, when you first launched your podcast, I watched about 2 or 3 episodes, and I love the title, Girl Dad, and it brought me back to, I'm a huge Laker fan. I'm a huge Kobe fan. Nice. And when Kobe passed away, and I remember when like Michael Jackson passed away, and like Prince passed away, and then Whitney Houston passed away, I remember all these people would be crying and like upset and depressed. And I was always ask myself, like, why? They were just like celebrities, what's the big deal? I didn't feel any type of emotion to, as much as I love Michael Jackson and grew up listening to his music, and Prince even more, Whitney Houston as well. Like, I didn't feel anything emotionally.
Yeah.
When Kobe died, man, I was honestly, it affected me big time.
Oh, wow.
But part of the reason why is because, his daughter died with him. That was part of it. But then there was a lot of parallels in what he was doing with his daughter's, AAU basketball club. Because my daughter plays AAU basketball. So, and there's nothing brings me more joy than watching my young one, Savannah, on the court playing. Her and I called her Lady Mamba for years. She's, her jump shot, her form, you can thank me for all that. But it affected me. And what was interesting about that is all these HBO documentaries about the Lakers have come out. He had one out called The Muse, and I could not watch them. I did not watch them because I literally had this emotion that I didn't want to deal with. And then one day, I was just recently, a couple weeks ago, I got home and my wife was watching The Muse. It's on Hulu. It's Kobe's, one of his documentaries. It's an hour and a half long. And he talks about, some of his struggles, even going through the challenges of being arrested, the sexual assault allegations and all that, and how Black Mamba came to be, and his daughters. And so I watched it. I didn't plan on it, but I just sat there and watched it. And then I started watching all these interviews where he's, there's a ton of videos on YouTube of where him and Shaq, they go face to face. And I purposely kind of blocked him out, and I'm dealing with it. It's crazy that, he was just a basketball player. I never met him, and yet his relationship with his daughters just reminded me so much of the ones that I have with mine, that's why it affected me. So I just want to share that because I always think about that when I see your show or I see it up, a post about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who made the terminology Girl Dad famous, right? Like, I mean, he is the moniker for Girl Dad. When you search it up, hashtag Girl Dad, I mean, it's 16 pages of Kobe,
Exactly.
So yeah, totally. I appreciate the story too, because I think that the story is really enlightening too, to kind of just think about how your brain is working about pulling from how to be, a good parent to girls and how to be a good parent in general. It sounds like you're like emotionally like grabbing and learning from outside sources just as much as you're learning from your experience in your mom.
Yeah.
And that's actually really cool, man. I think that that's really powerful that it impacted you so much. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And it could be, I couldn't think of a cooler person. I don't really know much about Kobe, unfortunately, but I don't know anything about sports though. So that's not really a fair thing. Yeah. I don't even know the rules to the game, but I do know that he was an amazing performance athlete. Like his mindset was just unparalleled, right? Like his just mindset to win and to grind and all of those things were just like phenomenal. Like the way that he would talk on these interviews were like, oh my God, I want to be that guy. That guy's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Super driven. So I love that you have a good grasp now of like what success looks like for parenting. What do you now think about business then? Is the business success like, cause you've grown. Now what's business like? What's business success look like for you now? And as you turn 50 and you have adult kids, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's crazy to just think about that. My drivers of success and performance earlier in my career were about even recently, not recently, maybe 3 to 5 years ago. I don't even know when the turning point was, but before it was about me. It was about what value do I bring to the organization? How much recognition can I get? How much can I contribute to winning new business or growing existing business? And that has shifted. Again, I can't even recall pinpoint there wasn't like a time. Like I didn't like wake up one morning or get hit by a car and like be like, hey, my whole management style has changed. Now it's about my team and putting their needs ahead of mine and, supporting them as best as I can, especially with the pandemic, during the pandemic, even before that. It's not easy, going to college and trying to find a career. My team is, interestingly enough, comprised predominantly of women. And, and so a lot of times I have to like remember when I'm in a business context. And there are some people on my team who I'm closer to than others, right? Where we have a more of a personal relationship, and I can give advice as if it was almost dad advice, So I have to constantly remind myself, like some people don't want that, right? They want, what would you do as a manager, right? Help me through this. I've been really good at. I read a book called Situational Leadership. It's old, and it's about how good managers, good leaders adapt the way that they communicate and manage people versus expecting their teams to adapt to their style. So I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And, I have when I say close relationship with my team, some closer than others. I don't push myself on people because I don't want there to be any uncomfortable vibe, but I always leave my door open, and not just, my door is always open, is what you hear in business all the time, but actually living that and being accessible to my team. There's no hierarchy, any from intern on up to whoever can like put time on my calendar and we can talk. And I thrive on that. That's what gets me going, is the success of my team. And that's what drives me today. 100%.
That's awesome, man. I love it, man. You've gone through so many chapters in your life, and it's really, really fascinating to hear what success looks like for you in this chapter. That's really cool, man. It's like totally full circle.
Totally.
Yeah, that's so dope, man. I love it. Okay, cool. So I do want to include some rapid fire questions. I ask these same 5 questions to every guest, so there's like some symmetry to the conversation.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it. What advice do you have for other parents and soon-to-be parents?
My advice, personal advice, is to get them involved in extracurricular activities as early as possible, whether it's sports or other. I think student athletes, it's a good skill to learn teamwork. It's a good skill to learn how to, deal with different personalities and a coach environment. Coach meaning manager. So learning how to deal with being told what to do, not by your parents or teachers. And then, whatever sport it is, there's a level of competitiveness that is always good. not to be overly competitive, but early some type of extracurricular activity. Now, granted, it's not accessible to everyone, but there's things like the YMCA. I coached at the YMCA. That's my only undefeated season as a coach, and I've only coached one season at the YMCA. We went undefeated. 10-year-olds, undefeated basketball season. But
I love it.
No, I think get him involved early. We started a little late. But they both were in ballet, hip hop dancing, basketball, high school too, and club. I think that especially for girls, and especially now with social media, and I read reports after reports about, depression and anxiety and, FOMO and all these things skyrocketing.
It's skyrocketing for teenage girls, especially. It's crazy.
So I think things like youth sports or other clubs, things like that, helps build confidence
and community. It sounds like
and community.
Yeah. You're really helping them mitigate those risks by helping them build community through these team sports and community programs. That's awesome.
And young, I don't know if you've ever been told this, but like 13, 14, 15-year-old girls in high school can be brutal, meaning like the gossip, and not every girl, but there are cliques in every high school, and it is toxic, extremely toxic, and more so than even boys. There's what they call friend groups now, where you have different friend groups, and are you a part of this friend group or that friend group? And I've learned, if you can, it depends on how you build community at school too, or sports too. Like, I've always been a good judge of character, but not everybody is, so you might find yourself in a situation where you're around a group of people that are toxic. And so I want to share that with everyone, is girls in general, teenage girls in that age bracket, if you're involved in the wrong friend group, it can turn out to be very, very ugly and very, very abusive.
Yeah, I'm so scared for that. I'm so scared for that, to be honest with you. I'm going to call you in about 7 years in the middle of the night. You're going to know exactly what that phone call's about. And I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, exactly. I've heard horror stories about how bad it can get. And then, and if your kid is on the receiving end of it and not knowing how to do, I've heard of parents literally moving, selling their house and moving to get their kids.
A lot.
I've actually it's really scary, because they're worried about the kid getting, internally just they can't handle it.
Yeah.
And so they'll physically extricate the whole family out of the area for this daughter at that age group. And it's such a weird phenomenon.
It is.
It's so weird. But yes, I have been told about this. Thank you for the forewarning. And
put a reminder 7 years from now, put it on your
yes. And you're going to be on that list. So when you get that call at 1 a.m. in the morning from me, you know exactly what that is. Pick it up. Okay. Pick it up. Be there for me. All right, brother. Okay. Let me go to the next one. If you can go back all the way to before having kids and you could tell yourself one thing, what would you tell yourself?
I would have told myself to cherish every moment. Every moment. Thankfully my wife loves taking pictures. So and she's arranged a Shutterfly, which by the way, it's going away if you have a Shutterfly account, the storage. She has these folders in Shutterfly of every birthday, of every Father's Day, of every Mother's Day, of every Christmas, every time my daughters would go see my mom in the summertime in Tucson, Arizona. And sometimes I'll go down a rabbit hole and just look. I remember recording a lot of videos on an old school camcorder, and I lost the tapes somewhere in moving. And it was so whatever you do to capture moments, just have a system in place to not lose it. Cause I kind of regret, and technology was so young back then that everything, was hard to do that.
Oh yeah.
And, so I think it's easier now for young dads, but cherish every moment, take every photo, even with the number 2 and number 3, if you have one, take as many photos as number 2 and 3 as you can, just like you do with number 1.
Yeah. That's so funny that you just called that out, because I think that's totally true. I'm why are there so many photos of her?
But you know what? They notice they notice these things. The second they know when they're being treated differently, and they know when something is different. They're very intuitive.
Yeah, it's so funny that you just called that photo quantity thing. That's total veteran dad game right there. All right, let me go to the next question. What is the most surprising thing that you learned about yourself after becoming a parent?
Well, I've always known I was in tune with my emotions just because my mom raised me to not care, like what other people thought, basically. But I have, I kind of like in the neighborhood I grew up in, it was like machismo, right? You had to be like, the proud of your heritage and proud of who you are and not let nothing bring you down.
All right.
And internally, man, I was a mess for everything. I mean, I cried when watching the Titanic, right? When Leonardo, the next morning when they're in the water and he's like, he's frozen to death and like she pushes him down and he like, I remember like tears. But even when my girls were growing up, some of those, and now I'm have to subjected to watching rom-coms during Christmas, right? And those are sad. And so I think that it just surprised me how, like my wife, my daughters call me sensitive. Like, Dad, you're too sensitive, and I am. Yeah. I am too sensitive, and I can't control it though. But now it's like I'm more open to them about sensitive. It. Yeah, to being sensitive. Yeah.
That's a good one, man. I've never heard that one. That's awesome. I think I'm going to be like that too. I actually feel like it as well because I get so into what my girls want that I like, you expose yourself to it and then you realize, because I mean, when would you ever get that emotional with your boys, growing up, it's just only when you have these girls that are interested and you want to be interested in what then you start going, oh, I guess I am emotional and sensitive. That's a really fascinating one, man. Yeah. Okay. To switch gears for the last two questions, what's your all-time favorite business book?
Man, well, can I just tell you what my all-time favorite book is?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's perfect. It's Strong Father, Strong Daughter, and it's it's a book that was written by a psychologist, a woman, and she writes about her experiences with teenage girls, and and she doesn't obviously name names, but she talks about counseling young pregnancy, single family households, fathers being not present. And she kind of summarizes the book and her common denominator of all of her patients over 40 plus years of therapy with them is that the one common denominator is most of them either did not have a dad or did not have a good relationship with them. And so that my mom actually bought me that book when my daughter was when my wife was pregnant with my first, and I read it. And ever since then, there's a couple close friends that I've purchased. I bought the book a couple times for other people, dads especially, because it was a great reminder. And now it's not going to solve all your problems either, because this, even with two parents in a healthy home, people still make mistakes. But I think to me, I took it to heart, man. Earlier I said I was overly, sometimes obsessively invested in my daughter's life when they were young. Like I would worry when they would walk, when I would pick them up on the playground and they would be all alone. I'd be like, oh my God, she's not going to have no friends. She's going to, and she's only 5. And, it was just, I would have this weird thing, And
that's awesome.
So I was obsessed, and that book just helped me. Maybe overly, I don't know. Maybe it's a good question to ask them at some point. But that's been a book for me that changed my life and helped me, and plus my personal experience too.
I've never even heard of it, so I'm super stoked about it. Yeah, so I definitely am gonna check that out. Thanks for that recommendation.
You're welcome.
And I do actually want to piggyback off of what you just said. I am considering in season 3 interviewing some of the kids of the parents that have adult kids. Would you be open to me interviewing your daughters?
Oh yeah. Heck yes.
I would love to know what they say about this show and this episode and what you said.
Yes.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
I can't guarantee that they would agree to it. I think that they would if I genuinely asked them to, and I think they would get along with you well. Like I can see a good connection. I'm totally open to that.
That'd be awesome, man. Yeah, I'll follow up with you because I've been really considering it because there's been so many great parents that have been talking about adult children. And I'm like, gosh, adult children, that's awesome. I'd love to interview them and just here, rate your dad, rate your mom.
Hey, I'm 5 stars on ratemyprofessors.com.
Oh, are you? Okay,
yes,
cool.
I am.
Very good. Nice. That's a nice little brag. I like that. That's a really cool.
I need to put that on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. All right, Michael, to bring us home, when you're not being a super dad and you're not being a super professor or super marketer, what do you do for fun? What's your downtime activities? What do you do for Michael?
Man, PS5.
Nice.
Gaming, and I love movies, man. I love movies, like Netflix, Hulu, Paramount. So I love it. It helps me escape a little bit, just kind of live in a different reality for a while. But it's kind of what I do, even though I'm in analytics, we do storytelling, and so I love storytelling that drives passion and emotion, and so that's what I do. And gaming does that for me too.
Oh yeah,
being involved. Yeah. Oh, and I play basketball. I play hoops.
That's right.
Every on Sunday mornings at 8:30, I play with a bunch of guys 45 and up.
Nice.
And we play for about 3 hours. And
3 hours, good Lord!
Well, it's not one. We rotate because we have like 12.
Okay, still that's still pretty intense. I mean, that's a workout.
I love that.
Yeah,
and it's in my old neighborhood. It's Leyva Elementary or Leyva Junior High School, which is in East San Jose. Yeah.
Oh man, everything's full circle with you. I love it.
It's crazy.
That's crazy, man. That's awesome. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show. I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing you and getting to know you a little bit better. And I just can't thank you enough for all the insight and advice and experiences that you shared today. Hope you had a good time.
Thank you. I did. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon, okay?
Appreciate it, Young. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to The Girl Dad Show. Please take a moment to follow us on social media. You can find us at The Girl Dad Show on all major platforms. We look forward to staying in touch and keeping you up to date with all the new guests that are coming out.